on Wall Street. Vivian Azer is going to join us to share some of her stock picks later on in the show, including Trulieve and Green Thumb Industries, two names we've talked about a bit here on Yahoo Finance. And to address the question we're all asking, when big changes are going to be coming at the federal level, we're chatting with two top congressmen at the forefront of that battle. Colorado's Ed Perlmutter and Oregon's Earl Blumenauer are going to give us their timelines on when they see landmark bills advancing in Congress. It's such a good lineup today. I'm stoked. Buckle up, ladies and gents, because we got a lot coming your way. And of course, as we've been discussing this year in 2020, even as we await federal changes, we've been seeing a number of states legalize at a rapid clip. In just the last few weeks, we've seen plans finalized in New Mexico, New Jersey, New York, and Virginia, all moving forward to legalize marijuana, which means nearly half of the U.S. population now lives in states where marijuana is legal. And it's not just politicians making these decisions for themselves. In many cases, it was voter initiatives that sparked changes. In fact, Americans across the country now support legalizing marijuana by the highest margin ever, with 2/3 of Americans saying it should be legal, according to Gallup's latest poll. That's up from just 1/3 at the turn of the century. A new Pew Research poll went a step further, factoring in recreational and medical use, to show that just 10% of Americans said marijuana shouldn't be legal, rather, for either issue there, whether it's recreational or medical. So about 90% on board if you look at it that way, in some form of legalizing. Of course, while it remains illegal at a federal level, all the states legalizing has led to some big growth in the businesses here in the U.S. The market as a whole now projected to top $41 billion by 2025, according to Cowen's estimates, or $80 billion when you factor in the black market that's still operating here in the U.S., though that's quickly changing. As I said, more states legalizing, so that business coming on board, taxes being raised. We're going to dig into all of that. But first, want to start here with a focus on the way that one of Canada's largest cannabis companies, the largest there by market cap, has been planning to expand into the U.S., waiting, of course, on that trigger. Federal permissibility would be the trigger for their deal with U.S. multi-state operator Acreage to jump into the U.S. They already have that deal ironed out, but it's going to take federal permissibility to actually make that deal come to fruition. In the meantime, though, they've been spending money on shoring up their businesses north of the border there, including a more than $300 million deal to scoop up competitor Supreme Cannabis. And for more on how the company is eyeing their expansion to the U.S., I want to welcome back into the program Canopy Growth CEO David Klein joins us to kick things off. Happy 420. David, good to be chatting with you here again. And interesting to see kind of your moves, I guess, ahead of what a lot of people are expecting to come this year. Your own expectations were for federal legalization, federal permissibility to come through this year. So talking about the logic there in focusing on Canada ahead of those events.
Yeah, look, Zach, as you know, we've been restructuring our business over the last year to be focused on the U.S., Canada, and Germany. We've shut down facilities. We've right-sized our business. And in recent quarters, we've begun growing market share in Canada. And so the essence of our business is really starting to work for us. And so we saw an opportunity to buy a couple of really strong consumer preferred brands with the acquisition of Supreme. And we also did a smaller transaction with Ace Valley. Both of those give us better brand positioning in the space, which helps us build out our financial statement and our balance sheet so that we're prepared to bring those brands as well as the rest of our portfolio to the U.S. as soon as we can.
Yeah, it fills out what we've been talking about in prior quarters, kind of the full set on the value side, the premium side, to give someone out there, the new cannabis consumer, options across how much they want to spend. But when it comes to form factor, you've also been kind of leading the charge. You were among the first there in terms of Canopy's efforts on the drinks front. You have plans to launch those in Illinois come summer. What are you seeing there in terms of how you're prepared to roll those out here in the U.S.?
Yeah, we've been doing a lot of work to be able to affect those rollouts this year. I still am firmly of the belief that it's a great way for new consumers to enter the category. Maybe some consumers that would be afraid to enter the category through inhalables, and so we see drinks and edibles and just generally something that's not an inhalable as a way to bring other people into the market. We're seeing a lot of competition in the space, which is actually really exciting because I do think it's proving out the hypothesis, and we're going to be prepared to be there. And we've been working on our formulations in Canada to make sure that we have the perfect products to bring to our consumers in the U.S. as soon as we can.
And obviously, the acreage deal gives you kind of, I guess, an expedited path to a lot of the states where acreage is already operating right now. You can frame it as a positive in terms of other people pursuing drinks, proving your guys' case there as to why you invested so much. You can also look at it as perhaps a negative, as they're all going to be in the markets you're going to be chasing. But what leg up does Canopy have, given its background and investment from Constellation here? Of course, Corona Maker, people know that company well. What that maybe gives you as an advantage in rolling your own drinks out?
Yeah, so first of all, I think that you have to win with the consumer, right? So you have to have a superior product, and we're confident in the formulations that we've already deployed in Canada. We then have the ability for Acreage to bring those products to the U.S., and they're in the process of doing that. And as you indicated, we would be in certain states in the summer. On top of that, if you look a little further down the road, though, our ability to use our route to market capabilities, so whether it's distribution, calling on customers, using the alcohol distribution network, which we've started to explore with our brand BioSteel, which is being sold through a network of beer distributors that Constellation uses. You can see how the synergies between Canopy and Acreage, and ultimately Constellation and their partners, can really give us that leg up, again, upon permissibility in the U.S.
I'm glad you mentioned BioSteel, because that's a company in your company that we don't really talk about too much because it's kind of operating, doing its own thing. But you've also been pouring some money into some interesting celebrity and sports athletes endorsements, Patrick Mahomes being one of them too, that we've talked about before. But I mean, what does that brand do for you long term? Because originally it seemed like there was going to be a CBD focus there, not so much maybe anymore. But what does that brand maybe fit into the portfolio? And how can it be one of those? We talk a lot about other people who aren't doing anything in CBD or marijuana, but potentially could when we think about large CPG names out there. So talk to me about how you see it fitting in with the rest of what Canopy's up to.
So what BioSteel brings to us is really the sports nutrition component of wellness, which we think plays nicely into the entire cannabis play. And so, we can see, and we do have CBD product lines within BioSteel. Of course, we're going to lead with hydration, which is really BioSteel's claim to fame over the years. It's actually why we get so many celebrity partners, professional athletes as partners, because they've been using the product. It's a superior, better for you product in the marketplace. And so, we're gonna continue to ride what they've been successful at up to this point, which is really in the hydration space. But we already have added CBD product lines to the BioSteel product, and we'll continue to add CBD and other cannabinoid related products into the BioSteel line as we go forward.
Last question for me before we let you go, David. We've talked a lot about the timeline here. You've been progressive in moving it up and up every time we talk, but it seems like we've stalled out a little bit in terms of progress on the federal permissibility front as you await that. So just lastly, as you kind of see the progress being made here, I think you said summer last time we chatted. So what's it looking like now?
Yeah, so what I actually said last time, Zach, what it would be 12 months. So it did give me a little bit into next year, but look, I still think there's so much momentum behind cannabis that it's going to get done. Now it's just a function of when. And when you see the House passing a safe banking bill with Republican support, in fact, significant Republican support, I think it speaks to the momentum that's building. So now it's just a function of when we get through the legislative process, and clearly the administration, and in particular the Senate, have been consumed dealing with the pandemic and with restarting the economy. But we think cannabis is right behind that, and again, super excited about the momentum in the U.S. and what that ultimately means for cannabis and for Canopy in our ability to step into that very attractive U.S. market.
All right, David Klein, the CEO of Canopy Growth. Appreciate you taking the time to chat with us and getting us started here on the Business of Cannabis special. Thanks again. Be well. Of course, there, he was just mentioning the Safe Banking Act. That's one that we've been talking about here in regards to the way that laws and reforms will impact these businesses, largely cash businesses here without easy access to banking when it comes to cannabis companies due to the fact that it still remains illegal on a federal level. But the Safe Banking Act would look to open that up. It's been passed in the House before, and yesterday was passed once again, this time by a vote of 321 to 101. For the fourth time we've seen that bill get passed. And for more on that, I want to bring on the congressman behind the Safe Banking Act. Colorado Representative Ed Perlmutter joins us once again. Congressman, good to be chatting with you. It seems like we've done this before because maybe we have. The Safe Banking Act getting passed, enthusiasm building in the space. But this time's different because before the Senate was Republican controlled. Now, of course, it's Democratic controlled. So talk to me about what your expectations are in the Senate now that we've kind of moved past the hurdle again.
Well, so we passed it, as you said, last night with a very strong majority. All the Democrats voted in favor and 106 Republicans. So good bipartisan vote. Sent it on to the Senate, lots of support from the banking industry, real estate, obviously the cannabis industry, the National Armored Car Association, governors, the treasurers, some attorneys general. So a lot of strong support. And, you know, David Klein, I thought, summarized it very nicely in your prior segment. There is a lot of momentum here. And I really am confident. I was confident in the last cycle that there would be movement in the Senate. COVID obviously disrupted everything, and one of those things was moving forward on cannabis legislation in the Senate. But I expect Sherrod Brown in the Banking Committee, Chuck Schumer, I expect Pat Toomey. I think there will be a real effort on the Senate's part to move safe banking and probably some additional components involving taxes, research, a variety of things, social justice, with respect to cannabis.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt there's a difference between, you know, McConnell leading the Senate and Chuck Schumer leading the Senate right now. And when you talk about his kind of progression, it was interesting to see him say whether or not President Biden gets on board, they're going to be moving forward with some more progressive plans here. Of course, we've been talking about legalization at a federal level, going maybe a step before or beyond what the Safe Banking Act would do. But some progressives out there look at it as maybe kind of a potential problem there because they think that if you get the Safe Banking Act, you might kind of dampen enthusiasm to go for more progressive things like, you know, reforms around policing as well as expungements of records. Talk to me about maybe why that might be the wrong way to frame the discussion now.
Yeah, I don't think that's really the discussion anymore. Maybe in the last cycle it was. I think that folks see the Safe Banking Act, given its strong bipartisan support, as really the icebreaker to move a number of the other reforms along. And they may all be bundled together in the Senate as part of their effort. It'll come back to the House and we'll do some things with it all. A big piece of legislation is called the MORE Act. That we passed out of the House last cycle. It's being introduced and moved forward in the Judiciary Committee, has lots of social reforms attached to it. So I think a lot of different reforms are going to pass, and I think the progressive community recognizes that. So you got to start someplace. And the best place to start is dealing with getting cash off the streets. I mean, in Oregon recently, there have been 100 robberies. A murder recently, Colorado, we just had somebody shot. And this cash really is ultimately a public safety issue, and we need to deal with it. And that's where this banking bill moves forward.
Yeah.
Credit unions and everybody else supporting it.
Well, given that kind of statistic there to kind of wrap up, it does sound like, and we've already proven it out, that there is Republican support here. So given all that, I mean, it sounds like this might be an easier one to push through. So timeline-wise, I always love the timeline questions, but expectations this time around, fourth time's a charm on the Safe Banking Act. So talk to me about maybe the expectation in terms of how quickly this can get done.
I was overly optimistic last time, and so I'm not going to give you any time frame. It's really up to the Senate now. They can add, subtract, multiply, divide safe banking. So I expect that we will receive something back from the Senate to the House. It won't be exactly the safe banking, but that's a good place to start.
Mm-hmm.
And add research, and they add a tax component. They add some social justice reforms. I think it will be well received in the House. We might lose a little support on the right, or maybe a little support on the left, but ultimately there is strong support on both sides of the aisle to do something with respect to cannabis.
Well, listen, it's 420. I don't think anyone's going to attack you on this show for being too optimistic this time around. But for the fourth time, we've seen the Safe Banking Act pass. Congratulations on that. At least Congressman Ed Perlmutter from Colorado. Appreciate you chatting with us once again. Be well. We're going to take a quick break here on the business of cannabis. But when we return, digging into the way that the stocks have been trading around all of this news, we'll highlight that with Cowen's Vivian Azer, one of the most closely watched analysts on Wall Street when it comes to cannabis, on the other side of the break for her picks. Stay with us. Welcome back to Yahoo Finance's Business of Cannabis special. As we've been discussing, not only are more states here in the U.S. moving to legalize cannabis, but also marijuana products are rapidly changing, come a long way from just pre-rolled joints or flower in the space. Drinks and edibles also becoming important as well. And all those things led to one of Wall Street's most watched cannabis analysts to increase her size of the total addressable market for legal cannabis here in the U.S. up to $41 billion by 2025. When you look at the legal recreational side of the business, from $40 billion, that number is even larger when you factor in illicit purchases on the black market. But growth is still quickest in that legal recreational use piece of the market. So what are the best ways for investors out there to play that? Well, let's bring in a closely watched cannabis analyst today. That would be Cowen Managing Director, Senior Research Analyst Vivian Azer joins us once again. Vivian, good chatting with you. Happy 420. When we look at this, obviously those states, the big ones that we've been talking about and waiting for, New Jersey, New York, seem to be the largest there. But talk to me about how those states coming online and the timeline there really boosts the overall market here in the U.S.
Yeah, tremendous momentum at the state level, and good to be back with you, Zach. So since the general election, we've actually raised our TAM by $11 billion cumulatively. So that does factor in Arizona, New Jersey, New York, and then we raised an incremental $1 billion with New Mexico and Virginia coming online. From a timing perspective, we're trying to be conservative on a market like New York. We're assuming the start of 2023, but by 2025, we think that'll be very close to $3 billion. Same thing with Pennsylvania. We think there's a chance that maybe Pennsylvania takes up adult use legislatively at the state level in 2022. That could be another $3 billion. It's already a $1 billion medical marketplace. And for the rest of the year, we think Connecticut and Rhode Island could pass as well.
Yeah, what's interesting is, we've heard some critics talk about maybe Virginia's expedited rollout of allowing legal cannabis without the sale there. We've seen that in some other states too. But interestingly, I mean, in your chart, the black market doesn't necessarily see the same growth as the recreational side. So talk to me about maybe what we're seeing in this evolution of where the market is relative to where it was before when more states still had cannabis be illegal.
So the illicit market has been tough to disrupt in California because that's where a lot of the illicit cannabis comes from. And, enforcement arguably could be better. There's kind of an unknown number of illicit dispensaries that are currently in operation. So it's not just kind of individual drug dealers, if you will. The further east you go, the easier it's been to disrupt the illicit market. And that's why you're seeing markets like Illinois, which just legalized cannabis last January, generating $1 billion in sales. So the revenue is being displaced, but it's easier to do on the East Coast.
Yeah, when it comes to choosing which one of these companies, or I guess number of companies, are leading the way in capitalizing on these new states, obviously some of them have a leg up because they're operating there medically in some of these states. But when I look at your top picks, we've talked a lot about Green Thumb, multi-state operator based in Chicago. But another one, you updated your price target on Trulieve, or initiated coverage on Trulieve there, $65 price target. So some pretty big upside there when we look at that stock based in Florida. We're going to be chatting with the CEO of Trulieve later in the show. But why do you like that one, and what really stands out when you look at the ones that are best poised to win moving forward?
So for Trulieve, it's their market share leadership and the underlying fundamentals of the Florida marketplace, which drive best-in-class margins. And Kim's doing an exceptional job with that. Trulieve has a 50% share, roughly, of the Florida market, and the market is actually accelerating. So over the last 2 years, Florida was adding about 3,000 patients a week. It crossed 500,000 patients already. But in 2021, those new patient adds have actually been accelerating. In the most recent weekly period, it was over 6,000 patients got added in just a 1 week period. So when you're Trulieve and you've got 6 times the amount of cultivation capacity that fuels a 50% market share, you're going to, derive a big piece of the benefit of that accelerating growth. And in turn, it drives best in class margins, where last quarter they generated over a 46% adjusted EBITDA margin.
Yeah, and what's interesting is, I think we've come a long way in the cannabis sector. We've, this special's on 420. It's kind of tongue in cheek, maybe a little bit, but it's an established piece of business now, an established sector. And when you look at it, maybe relative to others, some people might point out valuations still have a ways to go. Given some of these names, people don't even know. We talk so much about the Canadian companies that are listed on major exchanges. These ones can't. So talk to me about where valuations here in the marijuana space and the U.S. operators fit into maybe the Canadian peers, and then also just general sectors you follow as well.
Sure, absolutely. So the exchange or the venue where the U.S. Stocks are trading certainly is depressing the multiple, and it's having a negative impact on liquidity. So it would be huge if the U.S. operators could relist to the NASDAQ or the NYSE. But in the interim, from a top line growth perspective, if you benchmark where the U.S. operators are trading relative to my core coverage in beverages or tobacco, these companies are going to grow their their top line at, a mid-teens to a high 20s compound annual growth rate over the next 5 years, which is multiples faster than anything that I cover in beverages and tobacco. And impressively, the adjusted EBITDA margins are very, very attractive for CPG. So you've got an issue with the venue. You also have an issue with the cash flows because of the onerous tax code in the US called 280E, which essentially prohibits most, if not all, operating expense deductions.
Yeah, it's important. I know we've talked about it before. We're going to dig into that a little bit later on in the show. But for now, Vivian Azer, wish we had more time here. We're going to have to do this more often than just on 420. But Cowen Managing Director, Senior Research Analyst, appreciate you coming back on to chat with us today. Be well. We're going to take another quick break here on Yahoo Finance Live. But when we return, breaking down all of these changes with a major player here in the US that interestingly just made moves across the pond to expand in Europe. We'll chat that with Curaleaf Executive Chairman Boris Jordan on the other side of the break. Stay with us. Welcome back to Yahoo Finance's Business of Cannabis special. We opened the program here today on 420 with a focus on Canadian operator Canopy Growth, which is fitting for the way the sector has evolved. But now some of the U.S. companies are quickly growing beyond those levels. And one of them, Curaleaf, based in Massachusetts, has a footprint now in 23 states and is quickly growing. And an interesting twist, though, it invested across the pond, taking a shot at international growth by paying $286 million in a deal to acquire European cannabis company Emac Life Sciences not too long ago. And for more on how that acquisition plays into Curaleaf's strategy to keep building both abroad and here in the U.S., happy to welcome back Curaleaf's Executive Chair, Boris Jordan, with us today. Boris, good to be chatting with you. The last time we talked before that deal was interesting because it sounded like a lot of the investment on the part of Curaleaf was going to be going into some of your projects here in the U.S. So I was interested to see that move across the pond. But talk to me about why you did it and what you see for growth maybe over there in Europe.
Well, listen, Zach, it's great to be here. Our focus still remains the United States. That's the primary market. You're going to see more moves by Curaleaf in the U.S. market. You'll also see really dramatic growth this year. I think the markets will be very surprised by second, third, fourth quarters this year for Curaleaf. We're really starting to hit our stride. The European acquisition was something focused on the fact that an opportunity came up to get an 8-country footprint in Europe in advance of what we think will be pretty dramatic liberalization in Europe, and we wanted to make sure we could get in cheap. And like what we did over the last 5 years in the United States, where we were buying assets and being criticized for it, 4 or 5 years ago. We paid a fraction of what everyone else is paying now. People are paying $35 million a store in Arizona, 25 in Illinois, 30 in Pennsylvania. We paid, $2 to $3 to $5 million a store in all those markets, 3 to 4 years ago. And I think that that's really coming to fruition now in terms of where we're going. And I think that was the reasoning behind the move into Europe. We think Europe's going to be liberalizing, and we're very excited about being in that market early.
Yeah, footprint's important. As I said, your U.S. footprint among the largest that we see, and obviously your lead in New York and New Jersey. We talk about kind of the medicinal side and what that might do to spring the retail side once it's up and running in these states. Talk to me about how Curaleaf might have a lead there and what your investment plans look like in those states.
Listen, Curaleaf historically has really been the dominant player on the East Coast. We have #1 market share in almost every single market we operate, New York and New Jersey being no different. New Jersey, we have a 30% market share, down from 40 with some of the new players that have arrived. And in New York, I think we probably have almost a 40 to 45% market share at this point. It's difficult to determine, but almost everybody sells our product through their stores, including our competitors. And so we feel very good about these two markets. I think if you remember back in November, I said that I thought with New Jersey approving adult use that I thought it would be a domino effect for the East Coast. And I think it's happened faster than we even thought. New York has now passed legislation and signed it by the governor. We expect the same thing to happen this summer in Connecticut, and we think sometime next year in Pennsylvania, and probably in 2022, end of 22 in Florida. So we really see an acceleration on the East Coast of adult use proliferation, and we think that will continue. And we're very, very strong positions in all of those markets, and so we're very excited about it.
It also seems like it's pulling forward a lot of plans here when it comes to other form factors. You and I discussed before an emphasis on beverages. Select Squeeze, the name of the one you guys are going with in terms of the launch there across 12 states. Talk to me about what maybe this moving faster than you and a lot of people expected means for maybe those product launches and what it's going to take to get those off the ground running at a scale you want to see.
So we're very excited about the Squeeze launch. We cannot hold that product on the shelves. We sold out within days around the country. I think we're now close to, as of today, I think we're in 15 states now. We'll be in 17 by the end of the month with Squeeze. And our biggest problem right now is manufacturing the product fast enough to get it out. It's really worked. I think it really works well as a form factor. People can dose and microdose their own drinks now. Whereas, the problem with canned products is that there isn't enough capacity in the regulated stores to carry them. And it's very expensive to distribute them. And then you got to build bottling plants in every single state that you operate in. So it makes it very cost prohibitive to do proper drinks at this point, although I think that's going to be a major, major form factor going forward as legalization approaches. And Curaleaf is definitely working on that area. But Squeeze really works well because it's easily distributed. It's not a costly product, and everybody can dose their own amount of THC into their products and into their water or their coffee or whatever it is they're using. It tastes really good, and it's really, really resonated well with our customer base. We're super happy with that launch.
Yeah, when it comes to maybe M&A or maybe other deals that can be done here, we were talking with Canopy's David Klein earlier. Everyone knows their beverage background with Constellation and the money, the billions that they poured into Canopy here. When it comes to Curaleaf and your plans, what does it look like in terms of A, the consolidation you're expecting as Canadian competitors enter the market, but then B, if we're so focused on drinks, what Curaleaf might need to do on the partnerships front to make sure that they protect that lead if more people are going to be coming into it with an intense focus on the drinks front?
Listen, Zach, I'm not concerned about the big strategic players like Constellation. I've seen this in every industry I've ever built companies in. They're typically slow to get moving. The entrepreneurial companies are much faster, and it's about people. There's nothing special about creating the drinks. It's about the people that formulate them, the food scientists. We can hire all those people, and they all want to come work for an industry like cannabis, and more importantly, Curaleaf as well. And so we're we're way ahead of the pack. We've got drinks. I've already tasted our seltzers. I've tasted our beers. I've tasted all the different products that Curaleaf will launch when we get legalization. But we're very careful about how we allocate our capital. Everybody knows that. I'm very consistent on that. And right now, I just don't think it's price effective to launch drinks on a national basis. And I think it's a national product. And so Squeeze is the product that we launched with. And as I said, the results have been absolutely spectacular. I mean, sales, we cannot hold this product on the shelves, and we're going to launch nationally with a CBD product, which goes to everyone, all the different big box retailers here in the next several months. And so you'll see Curaleaf and Select product now going into mainline big box retailers with the CBD version of our Squeeze product.
All right, Curaleaf Executive Chairman Boris Jordan, appreciate you coming on here to give us the update. Happy 420, and thanks again for chatting. We're going to take another quick break here on the show, and when we return, again, doubling down on the progress there in Congress after they passed the Safe Banking Act, what it means for more progressive goals at a national level. We'll chat that with Congressman Earl Blumenauer from Oregon right after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Business of Cannabis here on Yahoo Finance Live. We're discussing the progress that's been made. It's been slow for advocates out there, but progress nonetheless in terms of reform at a federal level for marijuana. For the fourth time, we saw the Safe Banking Act, which would allow businesses in the cannabis space to access traditional financing, as well as make some tweaks there, passed the House for the fourth time by an overwhelming vote this time. And for more on that and the progress we're seeing in Congress, I want to bring on the co-chair of the Congressional Cannabis Caucus, Representative Earl Blumenauer, joins us representing the state of Oregon. And Congressman, good to be chatting here alongside. I want to bring in Yahoo Finance's Jessica Smith with us as well. And Congressman, talk to me about what this means, because we've been talking about the Safe Banking Act for years now in the way that it's been passed in the House, but all the progress has been stalled in the Senate when it was Republican controlled. How is it looking now with Democrats in charge?
It's the difference between night and day. I mean, we had more progress in the last Congress than ever before with the MORE Act, with my research bill, with the Safe Banking Act, but it all went to Mitch McConnell's hospice in the Senate. Now, we are in an entirely different dynamic. We have a Senate that Majority Leader Schumer is on board and strongly supportive. The other lead for the MORE Act and legalization is Ron Wyden, the chair of the Finance Committee, my fellow Oregonian, and Cory Booker, who's been a partner for years. So having those three people, and the fact that this is not going to be bottled up, they'll have an opportunity to be dealing with the legislative process. What you saw yesterday in the House, again, with over 300 votes, a strong bipartisan, if it gets to the floor, it'll pass. And I think that's likewise what will happen with research and ultimately with legalization. I mean, you've watched this last year result in a tidal wave. We've had more states on the state level that have approved. Public opinion is strong. I've been working on this literally for 50 years. Oregon was the first state to decriminalize. The momentum has built. 2/3 of the public or more support us. It's going to be a $20 billion a year industry this year. I mean, the stars are aligned for being able to move this forward, and I think finally enact it into law.
Hi, Congressman. Senator Sherrod Brown, chair of the Banking Committee on the Senate side, has said at one point that if he considers the Safe Banking Act, he would want it to include measures like sentencing reform. If you start including those kinds of measures in the bill, are you worried that that could hurt the chances of final passage?
Well, I think it's not necessary to try and make this a comprehensive bill. We are committed to the MORE Act, which is comprehensive, and strongly support things like restorative justice. But this is a fundamental public safety issue. I mean, in my community, we've had over 100 robberies, and including one fatality. This is happening around the country. It's a public safety issue. It fouls up the building industry. It doesn't just impact state legal cannabis, but real estate, banking, the people, Scott's Miracle-Gro could lose its bank accounts because there's a number of people in the industry that buy their products. I don't think we need to make this the vehicle for reform. And I'm happy to talk to Sherrod and share the strategy, because we can do both and we can do it this year.
Yeah, and Congressman, I mean, when we hear Chuck Schumer talking about the timeline in the Senate, he keeps saying soon for a more progressive bill to be introduced there. And to Jessica's point, I mean, there are a lot of people who are worried about maybe that it would take away from the enthusiasm over there. But maybe why would that be the wrong way to look at it if we're thinking about incremental wins over the last 50 years, you said, to get to this point?
Yeah, I don't think it takes away. I think it builds the momentum. We get people on the record and people paying attention to the issue and mobilizing the vast array of people who support it. We have the MORE Act that is teed up and ready to go in both the House, and I think it's near ready for introduction in the Senate. This is comprehensive. It's got restorative justice. All the things that Sherrod and others care about is a part of that package. And we get the momentum going. We're on the verge of major initiatives dealing with interstate commerce, international trade. I mean, this is a national movement, and we have an opportunity.
For it to be a national movement too, though. I mean, we've talked about President Biden maybe not playing as active a role. We know his stance. Does that need to change for you to get this across the finish line, you think?
No, it'll be legalized by Congress. Biden was part of the Obama administration that made a decision with the Cole memo to allow state legal enterprises, as long as they operate within the boundaries of their state law, to be able to operate unfettered, and gave some guidance, for example, Treasury. I mean, this is an opportunity. I think Mr. Biden is looking at some of his criminal justice activities in the past a little differently, but all we need for the federal government to do is stay out of the way. And I'm confident that he will do that.
All right, Representative Earl Blumenauer from Oregon, appreciate you taking the time to chat with us today alongside Jessica Smith with us here. Thanks again, appreciate it. We're going to take another quick break here. We'll be back with much more on the other side, including a discussion with the CEO of Trulieve, what the Florida-based company is doing now as we see more states legalize. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Business of Cannabis special here on Yahoo Finance. We've been discussing more states legalizing, but businesses that started out in their home states have also done well growing businesses at home before expanding into some other states. And that was exactly the playbook that's being used by Florida-based multi-state operator Trulieve. And happy to welcome back to the program the CEO of Trulieve here with us. Kim Rivers joins us right now. And Kim, we've chatted a lot about how you guys have been expanding. I understand you just opened 2 more stores on 420, because when else are you going to do that? So congrats. But talk to me about maybe your strategy here as you've expanded beyond Florida. I know you're hot on Pennsylvania right now, and where growth looks like for Trulieve right now.
Absolutely, Zach. So happy 420. I have to start. It's been an amazing 420 so far for us at Trulieve. It's also the 50th anniversary of 420, so that's very exciting. And you know, this is really a wonderful year for us as a company as we look to expand our platform outside of our home state of Florida. We just opened our 81st location in the state of Florida, but also had some amazing recent news with our expansion into Pennsylvania, where we're going to have 90,000 square feet of canopy there, along with 6 dispensaries, and looking to expand further in that state as we look at our hub model, which is really looking at the 5 regions across the U.S. to make sure that we have great supply chain management as the legalization movement continues across the U.S.
Yeah, we were chatting with Cowen's Vivian Azer, an analyst covers Trulieve now. She was pointing out margins and the way you guys lead the industry. never bad to have industry-leading margins for multi-state operators. But when you look ahead to maybe expanding beyond, what might that do, especially as we talked about Cresco Labs moving into your territory now in Florida as well? Where do you see competition maybe impacting margins moving forward?
Yeah, it's we welcome competition in our home state of Florida, where we have dispensaries that have the most competitor dispensaries nearby. So within a mile or so, those dispensaries actually are some of our top performing dispensaries in the state. So we love competition because we think that really serves as a point of differentiation for our brand vis-a-vis others. So the more the merrier as far as we're concerned. In addition, we think that having really tight control on supply chain, really being a company that's grounded in financial soundness and efficiencies across our supply chain are really key as well. And that's not going to change anytime soon. Certainly when you look at other lines of business, such as wholesale in other markets, there likely may be a bit of margin compression there as opposed to a pure vertical operation. But again, we expect to be the leader in margin for quite some time.
Yeah, when we talk about maybe the other implications, we've talked a lot. This is inside baseball, but we're wrapping up our special here, so might as well get into it. 280E and the tax implications here that you guys might see changed. Talk to me about the size of that and the impact it would have on Trulieve, and also maybe how it would impact the way you'd invest in other products that you might want to bring to market.
Yeah, absolutely, Zach. So last year we paid over $100 million in taxes, $105.2 million in taxes with under 280E. If you removed 280E last year, we would have saved approximately $63.5 million in taxes. So certainly that, combined with the limitations in terms of access to capital, which of course is appropriate to talk about today with the news on safe banking, it really is a double whammy for legal cannabis operators, because not only do we have normalized banking and lending rates, we also have to spend cash, an extremely high amount of cash, on paying taxes to the federal government. So, we are very much looking forward to a day when those two things are no longer, and that we can operate like any other legal business in the United States.
Yeah, we haven't talked too much on this special about the medical side of cannabis, but we've also heard from multiple companies today about the excitement around drinks and reaching consumers in a way that's beyond just smoking. I mean, where do you put us now in kind of the evolution of different form factors and the way we're looking at recreational marijuana versus what a lot of people got their start in, perhaps, in the medical side?
Yeah, I've always been a big believer, and we've always been a big believer, that this distinction or hardline distinction between medical and recreational may not be the right way to look at it. When we look at baskets, we often see mixed baskets in terms of products and form factors. So I think that it's a little bit maybe not accurate to think about just medical or just recreational. Oftentimes, recreational quote unquote customers may still be getting something to help them sleep at night. Similarly, medical customers may in fact be getting something a little extra for a Friday or Saturday. So that being said, we are continuing to see incredible, innovation happening in our sector, and it's really exciting. Certainly with a focus on isolating minor cannabinoids that have interesting benefits, everything from CBN, which, as I mentioned, is a great sleep aid and is a replacement for many for Ambien without the high that one would get from a THC, to a Delta 8, to CBG. So there's lots of innovation that's happening. Certainly on the drink side as well, although that can be challenging right now given the distribution aspects of a truly canned product within state borders. But certainly we're seeing kind of the additives to drinks. So we have a powder product that you can add to liquid, which is really popular, and you can self-microdose that product as well. And so certainly I would expect nothing less from this sector than continued innovation among all form factors. But I will say that flower is very, very important and remains a strong, strong seller. And I don't think that that's going to change anytime soon.
All right, the CEO of Trulieve, Kim Rivers, a pleasure to have you back with us. Happy 420. Congrats on the new openings, and I hope to chat again soon. We're going to take another quick break here on the show. We got much more here to wrap up on the other side. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Business of Cannabis special here on Yahoo Finance. As we wrap things up, just want to spotlight the action we're seeing play out among some of the names we chatted with today. When we look at the Canadian companies here, leading the way to the downside, Canopy, Tilray, Aphria, and Aurora all seeing rough losses. That has been the trend, of course, as we've seen kind of some of the progress stall on the legalization front. Similar story playing out for some of the U.S. operators here as well, as we've been discussing those. We, of course, chatted with Curaleaf here on the show, as well as Trulieve. Shares in the U.S. operators faring a bit better than their Canadian peers, but still facing pressure here, despite the fact that we saw the Safe Banking Act pass yet again for the fourth time. Of course, a lot of eyes will now move to what happens in the Senate there. We hope you enjoyed the coverage here on the Business of Cannabis special on Yahoo Finance Live. Stay tuned. We got much more action coming your way in regards to the broader market as we see the Dow off more than 250 points. Stay tuned. We're back in 2.